Good morning and welcome to the Ask Weldon Show, episode 239. Today, the title of the show is just, Are You Scared of Your Own Rank? And it reflects one of the questions that we have on the show. We do have 3 questions, but they seem to all revolve around the idea of ranked play and the emotions that tie you up when you're trying to conquer ranked. So that's what we're going to be talking about mainly in the show today. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Weldon, and this is the Ask Weldon Show. That is the show where you call in and ask me a question, and I answer them from my perspective as a sports psychology trainer or as a sports scientist. I have a master's degree in sports science and in sport and exercise psychology, and I also train mostly professional esport athletes. And previously, I was a traditional sport coach. So I answer your questions from those perspectives. You can call your question in using the Anchor app, anchor.fm/Weldon Green. It's a cool little app that allows people to do podcasts, and I think you have to start an account when you get it. So essentially, you will have a podcast, even if you never create an episode. And then you go to my profile and you click the little audio message button and put your phone to your ear and talk, and it calls in your question. You have 1 minute, and it does something with the audio algorithms to make your voice sound really radio-esque. If you talk directly into the microphone nice and cleanly, it gives you that sound that you really hear on stuff like the Freakonomics podcast, where it's really clear that it's a radio disc jockey talking into a mic, some sort of fancy microphone. But they do it all through this thing and through audio engineering. So I recommend it if you want to sound cool on air. And then you get to be on the show. All right, let's jump into it. No other really big announcements to speak of. All right, first question for today is from Brian. Probably a lot of Brians out there, huh? You'll know if it's you in a second.
Hi, Weldon. I recently just hit my highest ELO of Diamond 2. After these past 2 weeks, I went on a win streak on Wukong, where I started at Diamond 4. And the sudden jump in ELO and being this high up makes me question my skills and whether or not I actually deserve this rank, or if I got lucky. And I'm also worried about demotion, because it's been a huge goal of mine to get a master tier, and I really want to reach it. So how should I face this problem? Thank you.
All right. Brian, thank you very much for this question. It is a very, very standard issue. So you are sharing a boat with a lot of other sailors here. So I would say, first of all, don't think that this is something that is strange or unique or different. Definitely, it's a challenge that clearly a lot of people face, and so it's a pretty normal psyche. All right. I would say, first of all, the perspective you should take is that you ask the question, do I really belong here? And the answer is, you are as good as Diamond 2 when you are playing Wukong against the opponents that you played against. Okay? Evidence clearly shows that. You might not be as good as a Diamond 2 rank when you are not playing Wukong, or if you were playing Wukong against other opponents, right? So you were wondering, like, oh, is it lucky that I got here? And the answer is pretty irrelevant if you just think of it as statistics that you got there instead of luck. And so if you want to continue climbing, well, one thing that I recommend, of course, is that you continue on Wukong and you just focus on one-tricking your champion and learning the depths of that. If you switch off your champion, likely you'll fall. And the reason is because you're automating a set of skills you don't have to think about anymore, which is allowing you to think about deeper, more important aspects of the game, that is allowing you or to make more finessed and collaborative plays in some way, that is allowing you to climb up to your highest rank so far. So that is like one of the things that I recommend for people to understand how to climb and to understand how to play the game, is to kind of play a champion that takes stuff off, that is very dynamic, of course, but that takes stuff off the table because they one-trick it so much that there's very many things that become automatic. Like, they don't have to think about their jungle pathing anymore. They don't have to think about, do I win or lose this duel, because it's all embedded within them. They already know the answer, so then they can just play, right? They can think about higher order stuff. So I would say if your goal is to hit Masters, you should definitely stick with one tricking, and understand that, yes, of course, if you play a different champion or a different role, you're going to be worse in terms of the ranking, because what you're doing is you're giving yourself an opportunity to train mechanisms in the game that you don't get to use very often if you're playing on a new champ. So there'll be like a warm-up period where you'll drop and then you'll climb up again, then you'll drop and climb up again. So you should always expect that, and you should always anticipate it, and you should always think that it's very natural, okay? And if you have a goal to, for example, hit Masters, you should expect to hit Masters and then drop out of Masters and go back in a couple times if you're going to stop playing your one trick once you get there and start brushing up on some of the skills that you skipped along the way. So that should also be a part of what you envision, and part of your things that you're scared of, usually in our mind, are the big black boxes of labeling that go along with the things that happen to us. So if you just imagine and run through the scenario of like, okay, I hit Masters and then I drop out. And then I want you to imagine your life. Like you're sitting there, visualize yourself in your room, visualize yourself going and getting a bowl of cereal or a bowl of ice cream. Visualize yourself like making a joke with your sister or brother, seeing your mom or dad and saying hi, sitting down and watching an episode of The Simpsons, I don't know, whatever. Like you'll realize that actually nothing changed, right? You got into Masters and you dropped out. You hit D2 and you went down to D3. And then you got bored of Wukong and dropped down to D4, then you went back up to D2. You're still going to be the same person if you're looking from the outside as the person who walked to the kitchen. Like when you go to the kitchen, you like put the spoon in the bowl. Like there's nothing intrinsically different about you, right? So like visualize the you that those things have happened to and the you that those things have not happened to, and you realize you're fearing a lot of existential things, that you're tying up your emotions to a lot of things that you think put meaning on your identity but actually don't. So I would say, like, to free yourself from that existential anxiety, one of the things you can do is just visualize who you are independent of your ranking in the game. And of course, you can establish social connections with people who love you and support you and know who you are independent of the game, and don't really care about, whether or not you're Brian D2 Diamond or Brian Masters Diamond or Brian D4 Diamond, and they just like Brian, right? And then when you go into the game, those things matter less. Now, if they matter less, you're thinking, well, then will I actually try hard enough to get them? And the answer is dependent on what you are actually motivated by. Of course, if excuse me for a sec. Of course, if it's something that you truly desire and you're seeking mastery in it and has meaning for you personally, it's something you're going to keep striving for. But if you're striving for it for some unhealthy reason, like you're trying to boost up who you are to make yourself feel better about yourself, kind of intentionally through the game, then that desire or motivation might wane as you increase your solid sense of self independent of League of Legends. And that's not a bad thing. That's just a normal thing. So just let what is be what is. I feel like if I was a Buddhist monk, that would have come out fancier. Anyway, let's go to question number 2. The sound quality on this one is pretty messed up, but I'll turn it up so you guys can hear it. One sec.
Hey, Weldon. My question is similar to the question that the third person asked on your last podcast. And my question is mainly, what can I say to myself, like either in my head or out loud, to like kind of motivate me to like perform at a higher level in the moment in a game? For example, like I would tell myself, I'm going to perform at a high level right now, and that would help me sometimes, but then other times not. Thanks, Weldon.
There's nothing you can say to make yourself perform at a high level on demand. If there was, nobody would perform at a low level. They would just say the magic words and then they would perform at a high level. That's not how it works, though. Sorry. You perform at the level of competence that you have, or you perform worse than that because you mess yourself up. Those are the two answers. But is it really performing worse if you mess yourself up? Or are you just performing at the level that you're capable of performing at because you're the kind of person who messes yourself up? There's an existential question for you. All right, so think of it this way, Mordred. This is the one that I always tell pro players. You perform at every moment at the level that you perform at. That's you. Your performance is yours. You have to own it. You can't say, this is high, this is low, this is low, this is not me, this is high, this is the real me, this is mediocre, this is me on my normal day, but I want to be me on my best day. You don't have best days or worst days. You just have days. You don't even have days. There exists only this exact moment. There is no future or past. There's really just now. Everywhere in the entire universe is just now. That's it. And you perform now exactly as you perform now. And the before you doesn't actually exist. Like, there is no past, right? It's just memory of previous things that you were capable of or that you did, or like feats or whatever. But all of it is pretty relevant to the moment. And there is also no future. There's no like, oh yeah, I got better. Now tomorrow I'll play even better. There's just what you're playing right now. Tomorrow, if you do the wiring correctly, you might have proceeded down the scale of mastery a little bit, and you might perform differently in the moment in relation to other people who are performing differently in their moments. Remember, it's all relative because you're not playing golf here where it's just you versus the environment. It's you versus other people. So I want you to bring down your focus a lot to the exact moment and not think about higher level play or lower level play. You're just playing in this moment at the skill level that you are capable of producing, and that is the average skill level that you're capable of producing. So you have a bell curve, right? And sometimes you're going to be on the upper side of that bell curve. Sometimes you're going to be low on the bell curve. You cannot always be on the upper side of your bell curve. Otherwise, you'd be in the mid. That would become the new middle of your bell curve. Okay, so you have to obey the statistics of your own performance, which means you're always going to be within this variance structure of your play. So acceptance of like the output that you produce, and then freeing yourself up from evaluating, is this high? Is this low? Is this mediocre? Is it what I want? Is it the performance that I don't want? You have to eliminate all of that perception. Don't think about it at all. You just have to focus on the moment and focus on the play. And whatever comes out of your body, you say, that's the play that just came out of my body. That's as good as I am right now. Okay, now focusing on the game, focus on the execution, focus on your fingers. I tell pro players a lot to focus on their fingers and their mouse hand, like to try to focus on the actual mechanismic movement of their body as they're executing the play. And of course, you have to accept every production that you do in terms of your muscles so that you can then focus on the next one. Just because there is really, I don't think, that the momentum that people have from one play to the next play or from one mechanic to the next mechanic is mostly a mental thing, where they're like, oh, I'm playing low today. And then the next one, they're like, oh, see, that was a low play. It doesn't need to be that way. You could fail one, then you could royally succeed on the next one because you're just focused on the execution of your mechanics and not on the evaluation of where you are in a given moment or how to say something to manipulate your mind into somehow playing higher, right? There's no self-talk that manipulates you into high performance. So obviously if you clip out that sentence, that's not true, because we use self-talk all the time as an intervention in performance anxiety and stuff like that, and as a way to like scale people over time and to help coach them through. But what I'm trying to say is there's no magic word of self-talk that you can say in the moment that's going to give you high performance, like in a reliable way. The thing that'll give you high performance is not evaluating whether or not you're high or low performing, accepting your performance as the competence level of you, and then focusing 100% on the process of performance in the moment. You shouldn't be thinking about what you should say. You should be thinking about what you're doing right now, always. Afterwards, you can evaluate stuff. You can go look back and you can look at the log of the memory, remember this past that doesn't exist, and you can try to predict the future. But in the moment, it's just interference. It's just interfering with what you could or hope to do. You could do or hope to do. All right, I got a little out there and existential on the answer, but I feel like we have to correct something at the fundamental level if you're seeking words that are trying to improve your performance in the moment, when it's really just focus and intention that does that. By the way, I'm not wearing a white t-shirt, I'm wearing a TSM shirt, and it has... We got some designs on the back, so yeah. It looks a little wrinkly because I wore it yesterday, so it's my gym shirt today. But TSM, represent. They're going to win the split. All right, question number 3. I'm going to turn the audio before I start this.
Hey Weldon, so I have this issue where I pick a goal or somewhere I want to be. This can be in league, it can be in my real life, and I work really, really, really hard and I get super motivated about this one thing. But as soon as I achieve it, I feel complacent, I get kind of bored, I get unmotivated to keep working on it. So my focus switches off to something else that I want to do instead of focusing on the thing that, I initially started working for. So I guess my question is, do you have any advice on managing this or stopping this or building habits to counteract this? Anything of that sort would be really, really helpful. All right. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks for the question, Ian. So I think we need to cancel your question. You were asking, like, how can I stop doing this? How can I manage, how can I get around this problem? But what you're describing is like just a fundamental of how the brain works. You set a goal and then you strive for it, and when you achieve it, you've achieved it. And you don't want to, achieving it again has lessened importance for you motivationally. That's how your brain... Oh, wait. What happened to my camera? Hang on, folks. Quick swap for the battery here. Anyway, what you're describing is exactly how the brain works. So when you're asking essentially to make that stop happening, that's the wrong question. First of all, it's never going to happen because you can't change the fact that you were born as a human. You can't be born as a Zorplock and have some sort of different biochemical structure. You could be born as a worm, but you'd probably still have goals, sorry to say. Maybe not in the same way that humans do, but anyway, moving on with your question in a practical and useful way, instead of talking about Zorplocks and worms. So there's a field of study called achievement goal theory, which is a theory of motivation around that looked very strongly around goals. And it's not really, in my opinion, very useful or accurate framework in comparison to self-determination theory, but it has a couple useful things that it contributes to understanding of goals. One of which is that you can have goals that are kind of leaning toward task versus ego goals. So task orientation would be goals focused on the process, and goals that are focused on how you do something, and ego on goals that are relative. Like I want to get I want to get platinum 1. That would be an ego-focused goal. A task-focused goal would be like, I want to get better at this skill on Wukong. And so task-focused goals are generally more resilient than ego goals. You can handle failure more. You're more likely to stay locked in on them and to keep improving yourself in the face of adversity, et cetera, et cetera. So if you're having trouble with attrition to goals, or compliance to goals, then obviously you should focus on generating them more towards the task angle. But it sounds to me like you achieve a goal and then you don't want to achieve it anymore because you achieved it, which is exactly how goals work. So maybe I can think of 3 things that are troubling you that cause you to ask this question. First of all, maybe what you really want are more step goals. You're like, I finished the goal, and then what I really want internally is to go on and keep advancing. But for some reason, I don't care anymore. Okay, so in that case, you need to construct better step goals. So you have this dream goal, right? Which is like way up here, way in the future, and you have to clarify that very strongly, and then you build a set of step goals that take you there. You think, where do I want to, if I'm going to be there in 10 years, where do I need to be in 5 years? Where do I need to be in 3? Where do I need to be in 1? Where do I need to be in 9 months, 6 months, 3 months, 1 week, and today? And your goals have a linear feeding to them so that you can always have something new and increasing. Okay, then your goals are going somewhere. Maybe that's what you're looking for. Maybe you're looking for, with this question, something to give your goals more meaning, so it doesn't feel like they're just empty, hollow things that you achieve and then they're done. Okay. Second thing is, maybe you're upset that your goals are empty, hollow things that like you get there and there's nothing there. You open the box and it's empty. It has no meaning to you, and you think it has no meaning to you because you don't continue. So maybe you need to choose better goals that are value driven. So goals that like align better. Maybe you're adopting goals that just society says you should be this thing, or we herald this thing, and then you want it because you think that'd be nice. So you have a that'd be nice goal, and then you achieve it. And then you're not really sure if it's nice or not. I guess you think that'd be nice, and then you do it and you're like, okay, I guess this is nice, but it's no big amazing thing that changed your life, and you're like, okay, now what? And you go looking for the next goal. So maybe you have too many that'd be nice goals that you're like taking signals from society and other people, and they're telling you like, do this thing, and you're like, okay, and you go do it, and you're like, okay, I did it, now what's gonna happen? So reflection and journaling helps you get down to like core values, asking questions like, if you're in school, for example, let's say that it's the end of school and there's a graduation ceremony and there's an announcement, and he's talking, an announcer, and it's like a TV announcer, and he's talking about what kind of person everybody was, and he's like, Ian here, he's the kind of person this is the kind of person he was in his journey here, and he describes you, okay, and he describes you as you were, like, observably, in the school, and how you related with other people and the things that you did, and like how, and not what you did, not what achievements you did, but what kind of person you were. And so you write that down, and then you go a step out and you say like, okay, you're retiring, and you're like, 45, and you're moving to another job, and you have a retirement company in the party, and through a party for you, and there's a guy standing up and he's toasting you, and he says the kind of person that you were at this company, and not what you did at this company, but what kind of person you were when you did it, how you did the things that you did. And you write that stuff down, and you think about it, and you really visualize, what is my idol? What is my heroic ideal of, like, who do I worship in terms of how they do things? Like, if two people were to accomplish the same thing, and one was to do it as an asshole and one was to do it as a hero, how would the hero do it? How would the asshole do it? What do I want? Sorry about the swear word here. And then you start to uncover your values, and then you create a value-driven goal. So you do the same goals that you had before, but you must accomplish them the way that you are, the way that you want to be. And then your goals have meaning to you personally. And when you get there, you've achieved something. So instead of a that'd be nice goal, you're like a progressive goal of development of your identity, of your heroic self. Okay? Or maybe the third reason that you're asking this question, which I forgot now, I should have written this down. What was the third thing that I had? Actually, I think we can end on the value-driven goal thing. I think that was kind of the key idea, that maybe the goals that you have just are not that important. You don't care about them, and you just are getting them as signals, like, from other people. And no, I remember what it was. Maybe you suck at celebrating success. So maybe you're like, okay, well, I have goals and I'm achieving them, and they're the things that I want, but when I get there, there's nothing. I'm not happy. I'm not satisfied. Like, I always just need to go to the next thing. I want to be satisfied when I achieve something. Okay, so you have to learn how to celebrate success. So how do you do that? Well, first, you have to anticipate. So a lot of times people don't allow themselves to anticipate their success because, that's kind of cocky in a way. But you can, like, achieve something, and then you can set up the anticipation and the reward like for the next day or the day after, right? You can say like, okay, I'm going to reward myself once I get there. I'm not going to think about it till I get there. Once I get there, I'm going to reward myself to celebrate achieving this goal of hitting diamond or whatever. So then you get there and you're like, okay, great, I'm going to reward myself. So you plan something. You say like 3 days, I'm going to take myself out to dinner. I'm going to treat myself. I'm going to buy a new suit. I'm going to take my friend out. I'm going to buy drinks. Like it's all going to be on me. So that I can get the feeling of like being a cool person, or it's all going to be on them. They're going to buy me drinks and we're going to celebrate it. You start anticipating it. You visualize it in the future and you're excited about it. The anticipation of a vacation or an event or a thing is how you build up emotional meaning towards it, towards the symbol, right? You anticipate the symbol and then you do the symbol or the myth. You do the night out with your friends, or you do the buy myself something new, or you do the hold up your glass and say something. These are myths and symbols that we construct as humans to give us meaning to tie emotions onto like tangible events. Okay. Then afterwards, you revel in it, right? You remember it. You look at pictures. You share them online. You write something down in your diary. You talk about it with your sister or your brother or whatever. And it becomes even more important to you, and the emotions attach. Okay, they instead of floating around and changing impermanently, like moment after moment after moment, they attach to something and they fixate, and they become like a memory, like a strong emotional taste that is associated with the achievement of that thing. And then you have meaning to your goal. So maybe that is my perception of the 3 things that might be troubling you that have caused you to ask this question, and I hope one of them hits it on the nose and helps you out. Thanks for the question, Ian, and I appreciate everybody who calls in questions of the things that they feel give them this little itch that they don't really understand, because it allows us to explore all these different facets of a concept that might help tons of people who are watching the show in tons of ways that you didn't even fathom when you called in your question in the first place. So pick up the phone, go to anchor.fm, click on the little app store thing, or Play Store thing, get the app, go to my profile, Weldon Green, anchor.fm/Weldon Green, and call in your question. It will be beneficial, even if you already know the answer, even if you already know what I'm going to say, because you've watched so many copies of my show that you're just like, I know what he's going to say already, so why should I call it in? Because then somebody else will hear the question and hear the answer, and they were too chicken to call it in, or they didn't even know that I existed, and then the show was created and the title fit them, and they ran into it, and it solved their life crises, okay? That's why I need you, my fans who are listening to this, to call into the show and give questions. And I'm starting to ask now, because as I'm looking at the queue of questions, we're going to run out of them on like Tuesday. So that's 3 days from now. Make sure you guys check out the Mac program, mindgames.gg/MAC. Use the code AskWeldon. This is my online training program. It supports everything with this channel. And it is the same program I worked on with pro teams. So it's the same program that I did with the pros. Of course, I did that in person with boot camps in the gaming house while sleeping on the couch/floor because, esports. Anyway, check out the Mac program. It's like online videos. Basically 50 of them in a row. Mini TED Talks plus a mindfulness training meditation session in the middle. That's what it is. And it's really cheap. It's absurdly cheap for its value. It's insanely cheap. And actually, I'm going to increase the price when the app comes out in a few months, which if you already own the program, you'll get for free. So even more reason. Also, check out my Patreon, patreon.com/mindgamesweldon. I finally started one. Right now, it just gives you the same thing as a Twitch sub, access to the VIP chat in Discord, where I hang out all the time, and the Patreon Lens, which is like a private Snapchat Instagram story, which is, as you'll see from my posts, my very first patron-only post, which came up yesterday, it's mostly going to be a fitness channel. Fitness, nutrition, kind of like science, all the stuff I do all day long, besides this show. All right, thanks for tuning in. YouTube, and make sure to come check out the live broadcast of the show every single day, 7:30 p.m. LA time on twitch.tv/mindgamesweldon. You can see the URL probably down in the description. And once again, that's the Mac program, mindgames.gg/MAC. Use code AskWeldon. I will see you tomorrow.